We've talked about in the previous episodes and kind of been hyping up on social media that, I'm not in a great place with the Star Wars fandom right now and the Star Wars franchise. Yeah, Star Wars sucks. We are fucked. As a society, as a Star Wars fandom, we are fucked. There's no coming back from this.
We know.
Yeah, we know. Haven't loved a lot of the recent projects, so it's kind of up in the air whether I'm going to come out of Skeleton Crew loving or hating it. But first two episodes, did we love or hate it? 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. And Star Wars fans, it's a great day to be a Star Wars fan because we got new Star Wars.
Finally.
But my name's Austin SWE. I'm here with my best mate, Scotty Holiday, my co-captain, to talk about Skeleton Crew today. Scotty, how do you feel about new Star Wars being out?
It feels criffin' good, if you know what I mean.
Yes, it does. I'm excited to talk about it, especially because this is the first time that we're doing episode reviews literally right after we watched. The same night that we watched at 6 p.m., here we are a few hours later recording.
It's going to be interesting. We haven't gone over anything together. No thoughts have been spoken of. We're speaking about them right now, so I hope y'all are ready.
Yes, I'm super ready. We've talked about in the previous episodes and kind of been hyping up on social media that, I'm not in a great place with the Star Wars fandom right now and the Star Wars franchise.
We know.
Yeah, we know. Haven't loved a lot of the recent projects, so it's kind of up in the air whether I'm going to come out of Skeleton Crew loving or hating it. But, like you said, we have not talked about our thoughts beforehand. So first two episodes, I think we should just start by off the bat revealing to each other, did we love or hate it?
Okay.
So, you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Loved it.
I loved it. Okay. We are kind of on the same page. Okay. That's not to say I don't have criticisms. I do.
Of
but
course.
I'm going to be
of
honest.
Course you do.
Yes. But overall, once episode 2 ended, I was like, okay, I had a good time. I'm interested in the characters. I'm interested in where the story's going to go. So for now, I'm kind of on the I liked it train. I loved it. But I kind of want to get into the deeper thoughts behind that led to that decision.
So we know this was the Skeleton Crew series premiere. We got episode 1. This could be a real adventure. And episode 2, way out past the barrier. So I'm curious, since I know you're going to be a little more critical than me, because that's just how you are when it comes to your Star Wars, at least. So What were your thoughts overall? Nothing specific, but what were the vibes?
Okay, so starting off, like I said before, I didn't decide that I loved it until I got to the end of episode 2. I was kind of undecided watching it throughout. Episode 1, I didn't like as much as I liked episode 2. Episode 1, I appreciate how bold it is to kind of bring so much new to the Star Wars franchise. We're seeing things that we just have not seen before, vibes we have not felt. And I respect that. I like seeing the suburbs. I like seeing the everyday life of the kids, the kind of world building we had at Attin.
Yeah.
But there was something missing that made that episode 1, it didn't feel like Star Wars to me. It felt like an enjoyable episode, but I feel like if it wasn't Star Wars, I would not be watching the show, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And it's really funny that you say that, because for me, a couple things that I liked overall is I personally thought that episode 1 specifically felt very, at least visually, it felt very prequel to me.
That makes sense.
Which is probably why I liked it so much, because it was giving me everything that I was going through. I felt myself smiling so many times throughout episode 1. Even at the beginning with them just playing Jedi with their lightsabers and whatnot. I was so into it. I was smiling. I was having a good time. I was laughing. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second episode, but I definitely felt like I connected more with the first episode, and then the second episode really sucked me in with the intrigue.
Right. Okay, I could definitely see that, and that makes sense that, you kind of felt more connected to episode 1, the characters. We're learning about their background, it's a lot more grounded. We're also dealing with, like, kinda real world issues here, like Neil's crush on in school,
The smart girl.
Right, like a test going on, that's the things that we're dealing with in episode 1. But part of
Mhm.
me, going into this show, and we kind of talked about it in the last episode, they kind of said, especially in that round table, the show stars kids, but it's not for kids. To
Mhm.
me, it kind of felt like a kids show in episode
Okay.
1. It felt very made for kids. Kind of the writing and the dialogue kind of felt a little Disney Channel to me.
So you
I'm
should
not.
have loved it.
Well, yes, me growing
You
up
were
on
just
Disney Channel, yes, but I don't know how much I love it in my Star Wars.
I think for me at least, and I feel like we've talked about this before. I talked about it in my trailer, like my initial trailer review that I did,
Mhm,
is and I think this is why probably you episode 2 sold it for you is
mhm.
because of that crazy juxtaposition going from the neat, clean, cookie cutter suburbs into the nitty and gritty like
Right.
pirate place. We got another brothel in Star Wars, and
Yeah.
this one was like full red light district and everything.
Yeah.
We even got like an F bomb, like the in universe F bomb, which
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god. I don't know if they've ever used like criff or criffing in a show. I've only seen it in like fanfics. He literally said, "What do you think this is, a criffing charity?" I was just like, "Oh," I had to pause and I started cackling. And that's that's why I think at least
Mhm,
it kind of did what it needed to, of going from the clean cut like suburbia, and then it's like
mhm.
literally thrusting them through hyperspace through the barrier
Yeah.
into this crazy wide open galaxy, which kind of perfectly portrays what we've seen so far of the New Republic to me, where it's
Mhm.
like they're trying to do these things but all this shady stuff is going on like behind the scenes. um
Right.
Everyone's kind of running around wild in this power vacuum that's been created.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly why I say that I came to the conclusion in the end that I overall enjoyed that journey of
Yeah.
episode 1 and 2, because I think it's very intentional that everything feels different. These
Hmm.
kids are Star Wars fans, but I kind of see them as like casual Star Wars fans. Like, maybe if they were in our world, maybe they just saw
Hmm.
the original trilogy when they were younger, nothing past that. And so they kind of have this idea of like Star Wars in their own imagination.
Hmm.
And I feel like it makes it really easy for someone to start watching this show and then slowly get connected to the overall Star Wars franchise and the bigger universe, because that's pretty much what happens here is, you
Literally.
know, we're starting off with something we really don't know anything about, never seen before, and then slowly start getting to the things we know from Star Wars, a huge spaceport,
Mhm.
pirates, things like that. So at the end of the day, I think it's a very intentional choice,
Yeah, for
for
sure.
it to kind of start off as cringe, a little childish.
It's
um,
that juxtaposition that makes it
yeah,
work.
exactly, exactly. And also, as we kind of learn later on in the second episode, and I think we'll get into a bit later on,
For
Atten is
sure.
clearly cut off from the rest of the galaxy, and that's very
Mhm.
clearly why it is so different from the
Mhm.
rest of the galaxy. I'm very excited to talk about that because I kind of have some theories
Oh,
about.
we gonna get into a little theory time? I'm
Yeah,
excited. There's so much. There's so much to talk about. But yeah, let's get into episode 1 before we jump ahead.
right.
And like I want to talk about our main cast.
Okay.
We have Wim.
Hmm.
He's the little curly-haired kid. I guess you could call him our main character, don't
Yeah,
you
I'd
think?
say so. I definitely say so.
We've got Neel, his best friend. Everybody knows
Hmm.
Neel.
Yeah.
Neil's the blue one who's not an Ortolan, as we
Not an
discussed last
Ortolan.
episode, but he's very close. We have Fern, who's like the rebel girl,
Hmm.
and then we have KB, who's like the whiz kid.
Yes. It makes for a good dynamic, I'd say. And I kind of liked the two sides where it's like
Mhm.
Neil and Wim and then Fern and KB. They
Mhm.
aren't a group at the start, so I thought that was kind of fun. I kind of saw where it was going, but it
Yeah.
was it was a fun dynamic there.
I'm not gonna lie, and you probably cringed at this, but
Mhm.
I thought it was so funny and so, like, real, being like, "Ew, why you wanna go with the girls? Ew, nasty boys." Like, just the way that, like, kids are when they're, like, pitted up
Right.
against the opposite gender, and they're just
Mhm.
like, "Ew, gross." Like,
Yeah.
that just felt so realistic, and I
Mhm.
really liked that. I like that the kids are filling these archetypes because
Mhm.
it's familiar and relatable, but they're still kind of experiencing things in their own world. Like Wim has his little, what did they call it? I wanted to call it a hollow reader. I think it was a story pad is what they called it. And
Yeah, his
like
iPad.
basically I mean he's an iPad kid because
Yeah.
his dad's never home
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
his mom may or may not be dead. That was kind of what I
Yeah.
was getting out of it. But I was like,
So, yeah, he's neglected, and I'm not gonna lie, like, okay, I get it, but that was also I was like, "It's a little on the nose," like, "Oh, a kid." I think this show kinda hurt, like, knowing things beforehand, like, watching the trailers, knowing Jude
agreed.
Law's in it, knowing Jude Law's character, when he showed up in the end, not to jump ahead, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's Jude Law's character," that I
Yeah.
don't remember the name of because he was barely in it.
He didn't
Um,
even say his name. We don't even know it
nope.
yet.
Yep, I guess
Well, we
not.
know it, but not in the show.
But so when we see that his dad is off to work and leaving him alone for a week and he doesn't have a mom and he's yearning for something more, it's like,
Yearning for
okay.
adventure.
Right. It's like, okay, okay, like we fucking get it,
Yeah,
But I it's there's only so much you can do, and that's kind of the archetype that's needed for a character like him that kind of catapulted this whole adventure. As they say in the episode,
literally.
it is your fault. It's kind of your fault.
Now I have a question
Mhm,
because I don't know, my glasses were a little dirty. I literally ended up taking them off, like, during the second episode because I was like, "I feel like I'm missing stuff."
mhm.
Is Fern's mom the undersecretary or whatever her title was?
That visited the school.
Yeah.
Yes,
That is her mom? Okay, that's what I
yes,
thought, but, like, they never showed her name in the closed captions again, so I was
right.
like, "I think that's her," but, like, we saw her in 2 scenes.
Right. Well, if you remember in the second scene where her daughter comes home when Fern comes home,
Mhm.
she has that chip or whatever that signifies something of
That
importance
she's,
at
like,
her
the head of the
school.
class or something.
Right. And so it's kind of revealed that like the whole reason she was there was to kind of get that back for her. I kind of
Mhm.
took it as like it was taken away because, she's the rebel kid, she's bad, but and then her mom came in with all this power and was like, "Get it back."
I c I can't tell if her mom knows she's bad or not, only because you know how she, like,
Mhm.
switches up her clothes and stuff, and she's, like,
Yes.
trying to sneak back in her house, so
And
I
lies
was
to
a
the
little confused
droid
at that
or the
part.
droid
Yeah,
lies with
I
her.
was
Yeah.
like, does her mom think she's a good kid and she's doing all these bad things on the side because,
Mhm.
like, she's being angsty because, like, her
Right.
mom's, like, a part of the school or whatever? I don't know. It was
Yeah.
That's a dynamic that we didn't get to see much of. We didn't get to see any of KB's family.
Yeah.
We saw Neil's family from afar. I mean, they're cute as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, I loved Neil's family. But yeah, that's kind of something I was gonna mention with Fern, especially, is I kind of need more backstory, or not backstory, but like you said, more between her mom and like what Fern's lifestyle actually is. Because I'm not gonna
Mhm.
lie, it seems a little off that she was like she stood up to that one pirate, stood up to the droid, SM-33. The way she was like lying and telling these
Yeah.
stories, she kind of has like experience under her belt that is like you don't exactly think, oh, would she, well, like, where did that come from? you
I
know
feel like I don't know, maybe it's because we've already seen it once in the show with, like, Wim and his dad, but I'm like,
Mhm.
maybe Fern's dad is dead, and she's just with her
Right,
mom, and she's really angsty because
right.
of it, whereas Wim's just like, "I wanna do something more because my father is absent," but Fern's mom is, like, present or at least
Hmm.
tries to be overbearing, so she's, like, rebelling. That's what I
Right.
got out of it. I would know because I did the same thing. I don't have a dead parent, but
That makes sense. I more just mean like she kind of seems like she's putting up an act. Like
Oh,
she
yeah.
clearly comes from like a privileged
Mhm.
lifestyle. Her mom is like a secretary or like some sort of politician. Can't remember
Mhm.
exactly what it was. I'm sure they say it in the show. but
It was undersecretary, which this episode
undersecretary.
was very weird with all these weird, like, these math equations and
Yeah.
terms that they were just making up. It's like it's very Han Solo,
Yeah.
when he's talking about how fast he made the Kessel Run, but he says it in, like, time instead of measurement or something. I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly what it is, but
Yeah. Well, think of when they were flying the ship and I believe the droid's name is SM-33, right?
yes,
I'm
that's what they
correct?
call him, SM-33.
Okay, because it's a tie into SME from
Mhm.
yeah. So okay, glad I wasn't the only one that noticed. Um but when he's explaining showing the captain how to fly her ship, he's saying all this random bullshit and I just thought it was so funny cuz I just think back to Harrison Ford talking about
Mhm.
in the original Star Wars when he was like, "So, George, how exactly am I supposed to fly this thing? What do you want me to do?" And George was like, "Just press random buttons." And so now, all these years later, we have some poor writer, John Watts, coming in and it has to actually come up with names. And, I'm sure that was
Yeah.
something that was already in a book or something that they pulled from. But I
Oh,
just thought it was
I'm
funny.
sure. No, but I love that shit. I eat that shit up.
Yeah,
Like, I love all the
absolutely.
weird in-universe funky stuff that they do. I'm very curious about who, and this kinda got touched on with the weirdness of, like, the school and their assessment and stuff,
Hmm.
which I don't wanna get into too much, but I'm like, "Who is the supervisor?" That's who I wanna know, because Fern's mom knows who the supervisor is, and she
Right.
mentions the supervisor and,
Hmm.
like, the great work, and I'm like, what is all this weird stuff that's going on behind the scenes that we
Hmm.
don't see? And they've got all the robots around, and it's almost like a weird, like, police state, but like
Yeah.
disguised as not that. It's very, and I can't think of the phrasing for it. I can't.
Dystopian.
Dystopian. Thank you. See,
Hmm.
this is why, like I said last episode, we're a dyad. Like, we're connected.
Yes.
It's very dystopian, but like
Mhm.
with a blanket of like freedom and simplicity and like
Right.
everything's perfect.
And that very clearly ties into the whole thing about them being cut off from the rest of the
Hmm.
galaxy. I think it's, like you said, it's kind of a police state because remember when in episode 2, not to jump ahead, the ship's flying out and the droid's like, "It's illegal to go past the barrier. They
Yeah.
won't put up with this." And it's like, "Okay, dude, but the kids are in danger and the droid is worried about the laws being broken
Well,
because
and on
they're
top of
obviously
this,
hiding something."
yeah, I was gonna say, and on top of that, who is they? Who is gonna be
Mhm.
upset? Who are the powers that be? Because I did think it was weird that Fern's mom, undersecretary lady, was like, she mentions like what they do when they find their job or their career, and they're gonna be helping
Mhm.
the Republic.
Mhm.
But you know what is interesting? Now that I think of it, she
What?
doesn't say the New Republic.
She doesn't. She
A-
just says the Republic.
And we know that they are still using Old Republic
Yep.
like credits and stuff.
Did someone
So
read my
I'm just
notes?
N no, we didn't even have notes in the drive this time. We kept them separate. But no, I was just like, this is going into my weird Old Republic theories I was talking about
Yeah.
last time, and I like it.
Well, okay, so I guess we're already talking about it, so I'm just gonna jump into my theory. I
Okay.
don't exactly know why they're cut off. That's gonna be revealed, but I kind of have an idea of when they were cut off. Clearly, before Order 66. I don't think Wim knows
Mm.
that there was a Jedi purge. I don't think that he
Oh
knows
god.
anything past what you
Don't give
know.
us an Order 66 scene in
I
this
mean, it's
show,
coming.
please.
It's coming. Jod is apparently a Jedi that survived Order 66, so you already know it's coming. But yeah, I don't think he knows anything about that. Like you said, they say he has an Old Republic credit. He has Old Republic credits on him. They don't mention the New Republic. They just say the
Mhm.
Republic.
They don't even know what stars are. Like,
Exactly.
KB, the nerdy, or like the whiz kid, I don't wanna call her the nerd because like Neil's more the nerd.
Hmm.
But KB is like, "They're stars," and everyone's
Right.
like, "Stars?" Or like
Right.
half of them, I'm like, "Have they even heard of a star before?" It was just so
Exactly.
weird.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre, and the way that they treat the Jedi and Sith almost like they're a myth, which is funny because I think I enjoyed the first episode so much because I just read the Star Wars Myths and Fables book,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's very much like something I would read in one of those books, which I
Mhm,
love them, by the way. Everyone should check them out. George Mann is great. I enjoy
mhm.
those short stories a lot, but I think that's why I connected with the first episode so much as well, on top of just like that overall good feeling. But
Yeah.
there's some stuff going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. On the subject of Atten, how did you feel about the whole suburb things? I know, it's been a discussion in the fandom ever since the
Mhm.
trailer. Star Wars suburbs. How did you feel about it? Did you feel like they went too far with the real world Star Wars? They had gum and
Um, so it's what's funny about that?
hmm,
Let me piss everybody off that has that argument. The droid that they have on the school bus,
uh-huh.
I can go ride with that droid in a ship
Yeah,
in Florida.
that is true.
So
Shout out Star Tours.
I'm just saying, but it's funny. I like that you asked this question because I feel like a lot of people held on to this for a while at first, and I think what I actually said in my reaction was I was like, "It's different. I
Yeah.
don't know how I feel about it. I don't hate it, but it's
Hmm.
different." I like it now. I
Yeah.
think it's fun. I honestly loved the design of Wim's house. Like,
Yes, me too.
immediately I was like, "I wanna make this on The Sims." But then
Yeah.
I was like, also, uh, I want my house to look like this. Like,
Yeah,
imagine if that's how the Halcyon looked.
I know.
I think it
Oh,
would have been a
yeah.
lot better than what we got,
Yeah,
than
mhm.
Narkina 5 sponsored Halcyon. But
Not Narkina 5 sponsored housing. Yeah, it might not have shut down if they base it off of, Atten. Um,
I loved it. What did you think about it, though?
I thought the same thing, that shot where they zoomed out and kinda showed his big ass window, I was like, "Oh, yeah, he's got a cool ass room," like
Yeah, he does have a cool ass room.
right. He may
I'm like,
not
"I
have
want that to
loving
be in my room."
parents, he may be having a neglected childhood, but god damn it, his house is beautiful, so
He may be sad, but he's gonna have beautiful scenery.
exactly, exactly, and that's something I wanted to say too. The show was gorgeous. Like,
Yes.
I really can't think of a shot where I was like, "Oh, that looks kinda cheap," and that happens quite a bit with these Mandoverse
Mhm.
shows, Ahsoka, Mando season 1 through 3. It's like, okay, that
Yeah.
shot, eh. It kinda reminded me of season 1 of Mando almost, where it was like season 1 of Mando didn't, looked really good, and
Well, and we touched on that before too, is that maybe these delays actually did the show a favor.
yeah.
Like, we as the fandom, like, we're like, "Oh my god, it's getting delayed," and then people being like, "Oh, it might be canceled. Ooh, they might shelve it, blah, blah,
Right.
blah." And I'm like, "Well, maybe they were just actually giving time for it to look gorgeous." And I
Mhm.
feel like
It
it's a
paid off.
great time to start talking about Port Borgo.
Yes,
Speaking of
yes.
gorgeous environments,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
being in that port to me
Mhm.
felt like I was in a video game, in the sense
Yes.
of the way that they so intricately build these worlds in video games. I feel like
Mhm.
we haven't seen that in Star Wars in a long time. And that could be because like this is the first like post COVID restriction show that they've done. Because
Uh-huh.
even the Acolyte,
Yeah.
like COVID still affected that
Mhm.
production. But I think this is the first one that hasn't had any real COVID
Yeah.
restrictions, and I think you can tell. Either that or they
Yeah.
just put a lot of time and effort into these environments. Like the ones in the Acolyte were beautiful, but I feel like poor Borgo,
Yeah. It felt
so cool.
Yeah, it felt very intricately designed. Like you said, with the whole, it felt like a video game. Port Borgo feels like you could literally explore it as Cal Kestis or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I could
Hmm.
totally see myself walking through there. It they put a lot of thought into that, and to see that type of setting in a TV show where you kind of have to stretch the budget a bit more than a movie, I'm just like,
Hmm.
damn. Damn,
Yeah,
but like you said, they had more time. That means that the VFX artists had a lot more time to
as they
pull off
should.
something like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But yeah,
As
it
they
looked
should.
gorgeous. Also, the color of like this whole show, amazing. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that original concept art we saw of like the kids next to the ship is kind of the picture before they showed anything. It was the picture that was on every article about Skeleton Crew. It was this
Of course, I'm
concept
drawing a blank, but if I
art.
saw it, I'd be like, "Oh, that one, yeah, for sure."
Right, you'll see it in the post. But I remember it being very colorful, and usually when you see concept art from Star Wars, it always looks a lot more saturated, a lot more colorful in the concept art, and then you kind of have
Mm,
this like
and then it's more
dull looking
muted in the
final
show.
product. Yep. Skeleton Crew cannot relate. That shot where they're getting off, flying off the ship, and you have the fire and the forest kind of catching on fire.
Yeah.
Fucking gorgeous. The color is amazing. And also the
Mhm,
way like when they were jumping to light speed, that was very cool too. I liked how it looked visually, but also kind of how scared the kids were because you never think about it because all the other characters in Star Wars are just so used to it. But I'd be
mhm.
scared as fuck too going into hyperspace, you know?
Well, especially like I said, like they didn't even know what stars were, and then they're
Right.
looking at the marvel of the stars, and then they start like elongating and like shooting at you almost.
Right.
Like I would be, yeah, I'd be terrified.
Mhm.
And that looked really good too. All the space shots, and I feel like the majority of the space shots we got were just through the cockpit, but like I
Mhm.
feel like they all looked really good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But sorry to get us off track. Port Port Borgo.
There's a lot to go over. Like, as I think everybody can probably tell at this point, like, we really enjoyed just the visuals, and I
Uh-huh.
feel like we could do a whole episode talking about, like, how
Yeah.
exciting things were to look at in this show,
Mhm.
which maybe is telling because other shows haven't been as exciting to look at.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
if
absolutely.
we're complaining about creative and, like, visuals and, like, just letting people do cool things in Star Wars, and I feel like this is a testament to that when we're talking about how beautiful the background is.
Mhm. Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of love was put into these episodes, it
Mhm,
strayed a bit from Star Wars, but also felt like very Star Wars at the same time, especially episode 2 for me. It felt
mhm.
like Star Wars fans were in the room, but also Star Wars fans that aren't just looking for cameos and, exciting name drops. Even though we got that stuff, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard Aldani, I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like,
Me too. And on top of that, even though it's not a cameo, there are still parallels to Star Wars. Like the
hmm,
opening scene of the pirates like
yeah,
taking over the ship, that was A New Hope parallel.
yeah,
Wim riding through the forest on his speeder was like Return of the
very,
Jedi parallel.
yeah,
Like very that.
absolutely.
There was lots of great parallels. I even think there was like Pirates of the Caribbean, like Disney
Oh, yeah.
ride parallels and Pirates of the Caribbean in general, like the
Hmm.
movies. But
Yeah,
like all these parallels was so fun. It's especially the Pirates of the Caribbean shit, which is like more real
hmm,
world stuff, but pulling that into Star Wars, it all worked for me.
yeah. Well, speaking of parallels, guess who watched Goonies today?
Not me.
Me.
You did.
Yeah, I posted about that on my story, but it's kind of so funny because, going into it, I always heard like, oh yeah, it's very Goonies vibes, and I'm like, what the fuck is Goonies even about? I never even like cared to look into it. But then just reading the description of it, I was like, oh okay, it's about a group of kids who discover a map and then get led into a pirate adventure. It's
Hmm.
very on the nose. There's even characters where I'm like, okay, that's Neel, that's Fern. Like,
Yeah,
it's all a
I
little on
just
the
hope we
nose.
don't have to see Neil do the truffle shuffle. Please don't make sweet baby Neil do something like that.
I know. But yeah, I was seeing the parallels. I was like, okay, this is very clear, but it's not like a rip off or anything. It still feels very
Mhm.
inspired, which I enjoyed. In the
Agreed.
Goonies, the kids are all friends already. They don't have like this dynamic where
They
they're
were just
fighting.
kinda, "You're
Yeah,
together now, you don't have a choice."
right, exactly. And instead of a um, Jedi temple ship, they have an attic. That's where their adventure starts. So
That feels so grounded in comparison.
I know, I know. And speaking of grounded, that ship was very grounded into deep into the fucking ground.
To the point where they
Almost,
were digging it.
yeah, almost that it felt unrealistic a bit for it to just break out of the ground the way it did. But
Yeah.
is there even a name for that ship?
It does have a name, and
Uh,
the only reason we know, it's never well, it hasn't been said in the show yet, but we only know because of the Lego set. So the Lego
oh, of
set refers
course.
to it as the Onyx Cinder.
The onyx cinder.
which makes me
Interesting.
think like metal, old,
Hmm.
flame bent, like the metal smiths. I don't know if
Right.
maybe that there's a point to that or if I'm just connecting adjectives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ship very clearly is old, and that kind of ties into why I think that they've been cut off from the rest of the galaxy for a long time, because all
Mhm.
the pirates in there are decomposed already. They're already skeletons. So
They're
it's been
past
years.
decomposed.
Yeah.
There's nothing left.
There's nothing left. Even the fucking droid was decomposed, which I thought it was crazy when, we kind of see him, n- he seems done for. He's broken as fuck. He has no eyes. And then he whoops the fuck out of an entire pirate gang. Like, that droid has fucking hands.
He became like a rock'em sock'em robot. The way he like extended his arms and it was like boom, boom, boom.
Literally.
But it
They
was
weren't
so
even putting up a fight.
badass. I know because I was like, well, I saw Fern had the blaster. She shot the
Uh,
blaster, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe they don't allow blasters on like here, and that's why everybody's not attacking them. But
mhm.
then when our good buddy Vane is like, nah, girl,
Right.
that's not what we're gonna do. I really was like, how are they gonna get out of this? Like, we know they eventually find Jod, Jude Law's character, but I was like, these
Mhm.
little kids, there is no way they're going
Right.
to allow them to just walk away. So then when SM33 came out and did his little arm extension, I was like, oh, he's
Mhm.
about to like beat them like hard. And we
Yeah.
saw exactly that.
Mhm. You know what that's called, bestie? It's called stakes. It's something missing from some recent Star Wars projects, but when you're feeling like, oh wow, how are they going to get out of this? That is
Mhm.
stakes, and they did
Well,
a good job,
well, I'm
in my
vegan,
opinion.
so I don't do steaks. No, you're right though. You're so right because a lot of the times it's just like, oh, plot armor, or
Right.
like, oh, they're a force user Jedi, so they can never die.
Hmm.
But you're right, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed being like, I have no idea how these kids are going to get out of this little pirate den.
Hmm.
And speaking of, I hope they pick up SM33 on the way out
I hope so
because
too.
he was just done for after he put on that badass display, and then the scary Shistavanin or whatever the hell the wolf person's
Hmm.
name is shot him, and he was just like, "Mm."
Yeah, I kind of thought he died, so I don't know if they'll go back for him.
I hope not.
I hope
Droids
not
don't
too.
die; they just get repaired. You
That's
know
true.
that.
That's true. Maybe they'll turn him into a suit, a mech suit
Oh
for
God.
Neil's siblings, just like Grogu had in season 3.
I hope they do not take SM33 to Anzellans, please.
I guess we'll have to see what happens. They're very clearly tuned into the other shows that are happening, name dropping
Mhm.
Aldani. So
But in a
someone
fun
loved Andor.
way. In
Yeah.
a fun way, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I am a little surprised they didn't say Alderaan. Then I
Yeah.
realized that, like,
It doesn't
well,
exist.
it doesn't exist, it's been blown up. A long time ago at this point, it's been, like, what, 10 years from
Right.
Alderaan?
Hmm.
If not a little bit longer?
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a good point to talk about the reveal
The
about
reveal.
Attin.
Yes. Which we kind of touched upon already. But
Well, the specifics they say is it's a lost planet of eternal treasure.
right.
Like, what does that even mean?
I know. I'm like, where's the treasure?
Yeah, I'm
Because
like, what are they hiding? Where
right.
is it? Is it in the restricted zone? Is it also underground? You know
Right.
what I mean? I
Cuz
will say, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say, cuz all I'm seeing is alien species from Star Wars mowing grass. So I don't know how much treasure is going to be found on that planet from our perspective.
I have a theory,
Okay.
and it's funny because this imagery also felt very Jedi Survivor.
Mhm.
So, as Wim is riding his bike through the forest right before he falls into the kind of trench,
Right.
there's like a weird spire thing in the distance. I don't
Oh,
know
I know what you're
what it
talking about.
is, but that immediately caught my eye because it reminded me of the observatory spire on Kobo and Jedi Survivor, like right before you find
Oh,
Dagon and you're like
right.
going down to it, and it's just like
Mhm.
this mechanical structure in the middle of a lush forest.
Uh-huh.
I was like, everything was so blocky on the planet, and then to see this spire off in the distance, like in this more remote forested area that we eventually learn is in a restricted zone.
Mhm. Okay. Interesting.
I'm like, is there actually a Jedi temple on this planet?
Right. You know, they say there's Jedi temples hidden underground. You heard that Rebels reference in there. Um,
Oh, where they can hide themselves underground.
yep.
Yep, I did,
Mhm.
and I literally thought of the temple on Lothal.
Yep. Well, you clearly put much more thought into that structure than I did because I just saw it and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the stratosphere from Las Vegas." But that might just be my Vegas local mind passing by that to work every day. But
I mean, I was like, they had to show this weird spire for some
mhm,
reason. Like, there has to be, and maybe it's just going to end up not being anything. It was just a part of the more like city area in the distance. But I
right.
really think there was something to it. And
Yeah.
I also thought it was weird kind of tying into the Jedi on this planet. There's all this mention of Jedi. Wim wants to be a Jedi. Essentially, Neil's like, why do you say you want to be a Jedi? The
Right.
weird barrier aurora borealis thing that's like covers their sky
Mhm.
kind of matches that one image on his story pad of like the Jedi in front of the big monster. It's got the weird greenish bluish blobby
Mm,
stuff in the background. And
right. With the red dots.
could this have possibly been on their planet? So is Wim not completely off? Like with the whole there's a Jedi temple somewhere.
Mhm. I could see that being the case because he says like he shows the pictures and he's like, I think it's a Jedi temple like this one. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it would make sense for him to not really have access to anything outside of what is on Atten, especially because like when Neel is like, why would you say you wanted to be a Jedi? It's like as if that's like not something that happens within the galaxy, as if the Jedi are like mythological
Yeah.
fictional creatures, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
When that's not the case, we as, Star Wars fans know they're all over the galaxy. I mean, not at this time, but like in the
Well,
past,
but like everybody,
30
we
years
know
ago.
that anyone can access the Force. There's
Exactly.
just different levels that people are more attuned to it.
Hmm.
So there's no way that nobody on Atten doesn't have Force potential
I
unless the
mean, Wim
barrier
probably
plays into
does.
that.
Yeah. I think
actually, actually, Neil is Force sensitive. Surprise.
hell yeah. But I mean, it'd probably be a little on the nose, but I do think that Wim is probably going to end up being some sort of force user or trained by Jod or something along those lines.
Well, you know who he reminds me a lot of in
Who?
Star Wars media?
Who?
Omega.
Omega.
Especially in the early seasons of the Bad Batch, like
Hmm.
when she gets off Camino finally and just like that wide-eyed wanderer, and
Hmm.
then we're all speculating, oh, does she have the Force? Does she have the Force? And then Ventress comes in and she's like, yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I feel like it's a very similar thing with Wim where it's like, could he? Sure. But like,
Hmm.
is that his path? We'll just
Right.
have to wait and see. But I see a lot of parallels between them, and I really like that because it's like getting to see the galaxy through fresh new eyes almost.
Yeah. And I guess that just means later on down the line, Omega's going to have to train him as a Jedi or non-affiliated force user.
Not you quoting me, but I'm not affiliated Force user. Yep, Ventress will be their Grandmaster, and then they'll be in the new Jedi Order movie with Rey. It's gonna be
Whew.
great.
That might be an even crazier lineage than Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Anakin.
Yeah, very true, very true. Did you did you have any other things that maybe I didn't go over in general about the planet itself or anything that stood out to you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just really excited to find out what happened because it's almost weird to have a planet cut off because of pirate activities because it's very clearly tied into whatever the pirates were doing, but also the Republic since they mentioned the Republic. whether it's the New Republic, Old Republic, whatever the hell it is,
They
they're
didn't specify.
connected to a republic. I'm
Hmm.
very interested to just see and hear what exactly happened here.
I said there
And
was going to be a twist. There was going to be
mhm,
some weird thing.
yeah, and this might be it. This might be it. But then I just wonder where it's all going to lead to. Like, is there going to be a citizen uprising where they're like, "You've lied to us." They're going to one way out, one way out.
I mean, they referenced Aldani, so like there could be Andor connections that we don't know yet.
Right. But
Yeah,
like,
Andor connections to the kid show.
mhm, right. Or is it just something that only the kids are really going to care about? You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's gonna be very interesting, but I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm
I
I'm
think
like locked in.
yeah, I am too. I am too. I think Wim's dad is gonna end up playing a bigger part in what's going on. Like I think whatever's going on, he knows what's going on and it's
I
connected to his
agree.
job.
Yeah,
Like it
for
makes
sure.
sense, right?
I
Because then
think so.
eventually he might become like have an antagonistic role or his son might learn information that he maybe didn't want to know about his dad
Oh
and
God, it could
have
tie
to
into why their mom is or his mom's not there.
oh no. Oh no.
It could
she
get really
was
dark.
she was trying to discover why there's a barrier. You know, she was trying to get to the bottom of it
Or
and
she
boom.
was like, "Why are we keeping ourselves locked off from the rest of the galaxy? Like, there's a whole world out there." And they're like, "Nope, get rid of her. Bury her
Right.
in the dirt in the restricted zone."
No, literally. Literally. It's very don't worry darling vibes here. I don't think you saw that movie with Harry Styles and
No,
Florence Pugh, but
definitely didn't. I just laughed and smiled and nodded like I did.
but yeah, I think we should talk about Jod now.
Yeah,
We kind of
because
touched a bit on him, but
that's like the bookend of the episode. I think this is a good time to kind of go into him.
mhm, yeah, I don't think it was any surprise. Like we said earlier, when he was revealed, we knew what it was. We also have learned he was a Force user. So personally, I
Hmm.
wasn't surprised when he used the Force to bring the key over. I was like, that's what's gonna happen. And again, I think that just goes into maybe don't reveal so much beforehand. But then again, I don't know
Yeah.
how else they're gonna market a show like this. You know what I mean? They have
Well,
to they have to
if
tell
they had
people there's Star Wars connections.
if they had more than 8 episodes, it wouldn't feel so revealed.
Yeah, that's
But that's
true.
a whole nother story for a whole nother episode. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious because I know a lot of people in the marketing for the show, and when we saw that scene of
Mhm.
him using the force, some people were like, oh, is he just like doing playing a trick, is he not actually using the force? I personally have always been like, no, he's using the force.
Mhm.
How have you thought that way, or did you think it could be like something manufactured, like a trick? Or
I didn't know that clip was shown beforehand, so clearly you've had more time to think about it than I have. But I mean I could kind of see that because I almost had a thought when it happened. I was like, "Oh, are
Mhm,
they using practical effects here because it looks like they pulled this off in real life." So then
mhm,
maybe there is like a trick aspect to it. I don't know because that's why I'm so confused about Jod because like I just don't trust him for some reason. I just don't.
yeah.
His reveal felt a little sinister. Um,
Yes.
he
Imagine if it wasn't spoiled who he was. That was
literally,
what I was thinking the whole time because I was like, this reveal is kind of scary.
yeah, kind of scary,
Like
especially,
down to the shackles,
yeah,
like on his legs, like hearing
literally.
chains coming out of this dark thing. And we think Star Wars, we think dark hooded figure. The last one
Mhm.
that we saw was Darth Plagueis. So
Right, literally, yeah. It feels sinister, especially him being like, "I'm willing to help as long as you take me with you." I'm like, okay, what's going on? I really hope that he's good and like we're gonna get a fun little story, but you know, it's Star Wars. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he's good, bad, too early to
my
tell?
I think it's too early to tell, which feels like a cop out. But here's the thing:
Mhm.
if you can use the Force why have you been stuck in this cell for so long? Why now did you decide to get the
Right.
key? Was it that they kept catching you and you
Mhm.
didn't have a way off the planet? And now
Right.
you're like, okay, like these kids can actually get me off. So now, like, this is my big break.
Right. I
That's what
thought
I'm
about
not
that
sure
too.
about. Because I'm like, why are you here if you can
Yeah.
do all that?
I thought about that too, and then I kinda remembered, like, maybe it's a situation like DJ from The Last Jedi, but I think this is kinda ruled out. But, like, DJ, he was in prison and decided to help
Hmm.
them out and leave because he just needed a place to sleep. He was tired, so he purposely went to jail. It's revealed in a comic.
Well,
So
that's not very fun. Uh,
But I was like, well, maybe that's kind of the case here where he could have left. But then I was like, no, I think it makes sense that he's like, oh, these guys have a ship. They have an actual way out. Because
mhm.
if he just ran out, they're not just going to put him back. They're going to
Yeah.
kill him or something or put him in an even more maybe maybe they'll learn not to put the key right next to the fucking prison cell. When they did that, I was like, oh my God, like they just
Well, you know what?
handed
You know
them
what?
the victory.
Well, what that reminded me of, and I mentioned it earlier, but like it felt like an exact parallel or like inspiration from the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Because there's
Hmm.
a scene of pirates like trying to get the dog to get the key.
Uh-huh.
Like that's a scene within the ride, and they had the little rat thing trying to get the key. It
Right.
just felt very that with them reaching out from the cell. But
Makes
you
sense.
you mentioning DJ and his very lackluster reason for being in jail. Now I'm like, is Jod just like a raging alcoholic and he was so drunk that he got put in jail till he sobered up? And
Right.
that's
That
and that's why he's there.
that's what it kinda seemed like when he walked out. It was like, ugh, he was looking a little rough.
Imagine how he smells.
Horrible.
I imagine
Horrendous.
it's not good, especially if he was drunk. He's gonna be
Mhm.
sweating out oh god, I don't remember what their alcohol is called. Spotchka. He's sweating out spotchka, and I can't
Spot
imagine it smells good.
Oh, no. It was revealed in one of the press junkets that Jude Law was supposed to have long hair for the show, but Jude Law talked them out of it and had shaved head to have, like, shaved hair.
Mhm.
And now it makes sense why he would have had long hair because immediately I was like, okay, the rest of him is rough, but then he's got his hair all kept up, trimmed and everything. So what's all that about?
You
How
know
did he
what's
do that?
funny? I thought he was the most boring looking character in this entire show so far.
Yeah, that makes sense because they
With
have a
his
lot of
little
cool designs.
like potato sack shoes.
I know. But like he was very clearly supposed to be like unkempt, like,
Yeah.
but he has his hair nice,
Yeah.
nicely done.
Well, and I'm sure they'll give him a nice squashbuckling coat outfit, which
Oh
I think
yeah.
we've seen in
Yeah.
like shots from the movie. So
Mhm.
he gives me the whole like he's gonna go on the ship and he's gonna go in the captain's quarters and like take out one of the nice fancy outfits. I'm wondering, and I keep doing these like Pirates of the Caribbean things, but I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna be like a Jack Sparrow sort of character,
I could see that.
which I would like
Mhm. I could
personally.
see him kind of being a character of having a darker background,
Hmm.
probably done some things he regrets, but now he's kind of on a journey of, trying to be better. Or maybe he's not exactly at that point yet, but the kids will inspire him to be better. I know you
Oh,
didn't see Deadpool and Wolverine, but that was
hmm,
kind of Wolverine's arc in that movie
hmm.
where he kind of he messed up, got all the X-Men killed, and so he just became an alcoholic until Deadpool pulled him out, gave him a mission, and then he went full in on the mission once he realized it was kind of a chance to make up for his past and
Yeah.
do the right thing. I kind of see
Well,
possibly that being the case here.
and it's Star Wars, so Star
Right.
Wars loves a good redemption.
Redemption, and bitch, I love a good redemption story too. So
Yes,
let them
because
do that. I'm sat all 8
I
episodes.
always I always have to give you credit for the redemption. And
Yep.
I'll always give you credit for that with Kenobi because I was like, they're not gonna redeem her. They're not gonna redeem her. And you were
Yep.
saying it before the show even started, and then like episode 4, I was like, I want her to be redeemed. I'm pro
Yes.
redemption now. So yeah.
Yes. I'm all
You
about
do
the
love a good
redemption.
redemption.
Everybody
Mhm.
can go back and listen to our well, half of our Bad Batch discussions about how much I loved
Uh,
Crosshair's redemption.
3/4. We
Three
did like
fourths.
3/4 of the season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I
You
think there
did
was only
love
like 4
Crosshair's
or 5
redemption.
episodes. Yeah,
You're right.
Crosshair's redemption. I loved that so much. I just remember clapping and everything when him and Omega were escaping Mount Tannis, but that's a whole different
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. But there's definitely parallels nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Skeleton Crew? You think you have any idea where this could possibly go in episode 3?
I really hope we just continue on like a fast-paced adventure, to be
Mhm.
honest, because that's what it's been so far. And of course, I do still want those slower moments where we get time to spend with the characters, because that's another thing that's been kind of lacking in these live action Star Wars shows as well, where we
Yeah.
don't really get character development. And
Mhm.
that was one of my biggest issues in the Acolyte, was
Mhm.
that where was the character development? I knew who
Yeah.
these characters were, but I never got to see them go anywhere.
Right.
They just kind of stayed their one-dimensional archetype. So I
Mhm.
hope that we get that in this show, and I think we will. What I would like is a good mix of maybe a jump from planet to planet, trying to get back to Attin, but also
Mhm.
some slower moments like on the ship. Like we want to
Right.
see that redemption with Jod, whatever that redemption may be, and it's not going to be satisfying if we don't get time to learn what he's done and why he wants to be better.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm excited to see where the show goes. I really have no fucking clue where it's going to go, but honestly, a big reason why I know that I'm intrigued is that I was kind of upset when it ended. I was like, I
Mhm.
want to know what happens next. I want to know how they get out of there and how they escape.
Mhm.
I'm excited for it. I've I'm on the Skeleton Crew train, and I'm not saying
We're on
it's
the skeleton crew.
yes. Oh yeah. I don't know why I didn't just say that. We are part of the Skeleton Crew, but we're only 2 episodes in, so that could always change. But for these first 2 episodes, I felt the heart. I felt the love of Star Wars. I felt the creativity, the
Mhm.
boldness. Like it's really bold to come into Star Wars and kind of change things up in that way. But I
Yeah.
gotta respect it. I really gotta respect it. And also I like Star Wars pirates, so I'm just
Yeah.
excited to get more of that.
Yeah, they're seriously lacking. I feel like we see
Hmm.
them every now and again, but this is really leading into the pirates, and
Hmm.
like they have the Nile and the High Republic, but
Right.
I don't know, something about the pirates, it's really working for me as a
Hmm.
fun, different antagonist.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm loving all the marketing too. That's very pirate themed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, then, if there's nothing else, Scotty, why don't you send us out of here, away from Atten?
Well, we're trying to get back there. Uh, make sure that you follow us on social media at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcast so you never miss out on an episode. We're covering Skeleton Crew every Thursday, so you definitely want to make sure you're there with us. Thank you all so much for listening, and as always, may the force be with you.